Welcome to episode 30 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Amok Time.
In this week's episode, some uncharacteristic behaviour from Spock leads to Kirk considering a request to take his first officer to his home planet of Vulcan. With Starfleet expressly forbidding the detour, and Spock's actions increasingly concerning, will the captain follow orders? Or will he put his career on the line to help his friend?
You will cease to pry into my personal matters, Doctor, or I shall certainly break your neck.
Good morning, Ian.
Good morning, Gerry.
How's things?
I told you before to stop prying into my personal matters.
Yeah, you have threatened me with a injury or two.
Just one or two specific injuries.
McCoy is lucky that it's only a broken neck he's getting threatened with in this week's episode. I think something more painful might have been administered by Spock had he had his way.
To be fair to Spock, McCoy blinded him a week ago.
That's true. He was like a dog with a bone, was Spock this week.
Dog with something.
A bone.
Okay. I felt like they picked up where they left off there, though. That was a continuation of the good run of episodes that we were experiencing.
Yes, strong first episode for the season. So remind me, was this season in the planning?
Yeah, I think this particular story was considered for season 1, but they didn't get it ready in time.
Enjoy it, yeah?
Very much. It was interesting, I thought, to learn more about a different species. We've learned more about enemies than we have about Spock's own race, as it were. So
sure,
it's good to learn a bit more about the Vulcans.
I'm not sure how much I thought of them.
You're not impressed?
No, I wouldn't say I'm not impressed, but they had their flaws. They certainly had their strengths.
Of course.
Which we will discuss.
We will.
Before we do that, do you want to say anything to anyone?
Well, just encourage folk to chat to us during the week on social media. You'll find us on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. We're at Trek Podcast on all of those. And if you come by StarTrekPodcast.com, you'll find a post up for each and every episode where you can reminisce or share your thoughts, your experiences, your questions. And if you feel like helping us out, you can tell your friends who like Star Trek about us, encourage them to listen, or leave a review for each episode or the show itself on IMDb, which would be very helpful.
Is that you?
It is. Are you ready to get going?
Let's crack on. I must admit, Ian, I forgot to watch the credits.
Foolish.
Yeah, see, I watch it on Netflix and skip. When offered, I skipped them. And it wasn't until halfway through that it occurred to me that they may be different, and I think you said they are. They are.
They're quite different. The music's changed. Certainly the number of actors that are listed as prominent part players in the show has changed. You might have noticed that when you hit skip, it skips. It normally skips to Leonard Nimoy's name, but in this season it's DeForest Kelley.
I'll rectify that next week. Although I was very well aware of the change in the soundscape. The incidental music had a different feel to it.
It did, yeah.
That was quite evident throughout the episode.
It might actually be worth you going back and watching the season 1 credits again, just to kind of refresh what they were like before watching the...
Contrast and compare.
Exactly. We can do a full breakdown next week.
Maybe not.
We might not, no. Yeah. It's an interesting opening. We're not on the bridge, but we are on the Enterprise.
We are in a corridor where Kirk appears from a staircase and is joined by McCoy, who wants to discuss Spock's strange behaviour.
Yeah, and Kirk, as usual, has no time for McCoy's nonsense.
No.
Even when it's not nonsense.
Yeah, he dismisses McCoy's notes that Spock hasn't been eating and he appears nervous, but he's not too concerned. And they both then speak with Chapel.
Yeah, she passes by. We saw her again at the end of season 1. She's obviously shown up from wherever she's been, maybe doing a course or something.
You say she passes by. I think she tries to evade them.
I think she's trying to hide what she's doing.
Because she's embarrassed.
She is feeding Spock, or trying to feed Spock, and McCoy, in a very unprofessional but probably accurate way, notes what she's up to.
Yeah, I did think he was a little bit out of line here.
He calls her hopeful, doesn't he?
Yeah, embarrasses her.
Yeah, for no real good reason other than that he thinks it's funny.
Well, I think he says, he mentions that she never gives up.
Yeah.
What a thing to say. in front of someone else.
Exactly. I mean, it's fair enough if it's your friend, but she's obviously not comfortable.
And he's doing it in front of their boss.
Exactly. It's not ideal.
It's almost insinuating that, yeah, she is unprofessional.
She's behaving inappropriately herself. Yeah.
I mean, you say feeding him, it's not just bringing him food from, it's homemade.
Yes.
soup.
Well, she's obviously noticed that he's not eating and is trying to produce some home comforts for him.
Perhaps she's just being motherly.
I don't think so.
No? Something more than that.
Well, we saw in season 1 she professed her love for Spock, remember?
Yeah. Maybe she's like Norman Bates' mother.
Bit creepy.
Very.
Mm.
Talking about creepy, you watched the Dennis Nielsen docudrama? Or a drama.
Dramamentary.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. I watched both the drama and the documentary.
With David Tennant. Very good.
Very, very good.
If anyone has not watched it, get a chance. It's worth it.
It's called Des.
It is. Apparently some people had problems with the Scottish accent.
Well, that's what the guy had.
I'm sure our listeners won't have that problem.
They're well tuned in by now.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Although even I did think he's got a very strong and weird Scottish accent because he's from up north and they speak different. They
Those
speak
folk
funny
up
up there.
They are funny, aren't they?
Yeah.
Chuchters.
Serial killers. Anyway.
Yes.
After she leaves, McCoy continues by telling Kirk of Spock's threat to break his neck if he doesn't stop reminding him of his need for his annual checkup. That's what we heard at the top of the show.
We did, and it turns out they're not far from Spock's quarters.
No, we quickly see a demonstration of Spock's change in personality.
Very clearly. We see Nurse Chapel emerge from his quarters, quickly followed by the soup.
Yeah, I think she's actually literally thrown out.
Physically thrown out, as was the soup.
Yeah, he's in a rage.
Apparently that stained the set for weeks.
I can imagine. It was very purple.
Very purple soup. Spock doesn't obviously realise that his friends are right outside the door.
Well, he doesn't realise it first. I think he quickly is made aware of that. And so he requests a leave of absence.
Yes, almost immediately on spotting Kirk, and doesn't allow Kirk to present any questions.
Where does he want to go?
He wants to go home to Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
He's calculated it's not far.
Yeah, and as you say, when Kirk asks him what it's all about, he gets quite aggressive.
Yeah, he just wants a yes or no answer.
Before returning back into his room alone. And we then get the credits.
Thereafter, we're inside Spock's quarters, where he explains to Kirk that Chapel's actions were undignified for a woman who's not married.
Yeah, I think Kirk, he's demanding to know what's going on, and he offers us as
he's not interested in this specific incident. He wants more information about Spock's leave request.
Again, Spock cuts him off and asks for a simple yes or no, and his captain tries again and suggests that maybe it's a personal family matter, as he has never asked for leave in all the time they've been together.
And Spock, technically, correctly, retorts that means he must have plenty accumulated.
Things then take a very sinister turn.
He suggests to Spock that he take his leave on Altair 6, where they're going anyway.
But that's not a sinister thing.
Well, Spock raises his voice at this point, insisting they must go to Vulcan.
No.
What have I missed?
Have you missed the Spock having a knife held behind his back and shaking?
Well, you know, he does that sometimes.
Oh, I know he's quite a but he's normally with guns.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's
he doesn't ever really do anything with the knife though, does he? He picks it up and he doesn't present it.
That doesn't make it less sinister.
Okay.
Or your friend and your captain and it's almost as if you don't give me the right answer or at any point if things go wrong, you're getting this punched into your neck.
Maybe. It reminded me more of the previous episode where he had to control the pain, and in this case he's controlling. He's obviously got this urge to stab Kirk, but he's controlling it. He's able to control it, and we don't actually get it coming to the surface.
Yeah, but that's not acceptable. Or you have it under control. Are you sure you're fine? Yeah, I'll be fine.
Stab.
So Kirk agrees to the detour to Vulcan, and he goes to one of the communicators to speak to Zulu to tell him to plot this course in. And at this point, he sees the weapon behind Spock's back, and I think he at this point wants to retreat. I think he knows that things aren't great and he's going to get out of there. So they leave with these sort of fake pleasantries.
Yes, he says that Vulcans aren't indestructible, and Spock concurs.
Yeah. Kirk, I think, is clearly in a state of shock.
I think he's very concerned for his friend.
And his own well-being.
Well, to a certain extent.
And when he's left, we see Spock alone as he tries to stop his weapon hand shaking and agrees to himself that he is not indestructible. He's talking to himself now.
Yeah, indeed.
Captain's log.
Yep, they're heading for Altair 6 via Vulcan.
What is it? 3372.7.
Something along those lines. Spock seems to be under stress, and he's been granted shore leave, and McCoy's watching him.
Up in the bridge, Uhura passes Kirk an urgent communication from Starfleet Command. I think it's information about some sort of inauguration.
Yeah, it's the reason they're going to Altair 6 in the first place. The ceremonies are being brought forward by a week, and they have to go there without delay.
Kirk acknowledges this as we see Spock listen in, and we are then introduced to a new, apparently Russian-sounding navigator named Chekhov.
Yes, he's told to plot the course, and I think Spock's on duty here. I don't think he's just hanging around. He's obviously been able to control his problems, knowing that he's got an outlet.
This coming. Is an issue. I think, we've seen this before, where they've let people who are either known to be unstable or quite possibly strangers with different... What was it, the chap I said that they brought up from...
Yeah, it was the alternative factor.
Yes.
Lazarus.
Exactly, and they let him wander.
They did. You complained about that.
Yeah.
I think some listeners complained about that as well when I said it wasn't a big problem.
And in this case, the same situation, Spock is under severe strain here and not acting normally. He should be relieved of his duties and perhaps, put in a...
Flogged,
yes. Okay. The threat of it, at the very least.
Yeah. He'd probably enjoy that.
So this chap, Chekhov, confirms that they don't have time for a detour now.
Yeah, given the time that they're due to arrive, and Kirk explains to Spock that this is sailor's luck, which is maybe a bit of a dated reference, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he probably, like me, expected some sort of an argument, but the response is suspiciously accepting.
Yeah, and Spock has then promised his leave as soon as they're done at Altair 6, which, like you say, he seems to be fine with. If not happy. I think he still seems a little bit dark.
We're in Kirk's quarters. Clearly still concerned, he communicates to Chekhov and asks how late they would be if they increased their speed and stopped off at Vulcan.
Chekhov's very confused by the request. They're already heading to Vulcan, of course.
As ordered by Spock. Now this is a serious abuse of power here.
Seems to be.
He can't be overruling the captain's orders.
Yeah, I assume some time must have passed. It can't just be that Kirk's left the bridge and Spock said, right, Vulcan.
I mean, I don't know.
Because Chekhov would have questioned that, you would think.
But Chekhov's new. So he...
Yeah, Sulu's there as well, and whoever else. I suspect Kirk's been off duty for a while. That's why he's in his bed.
Sure. Makes sense.
Spock's in command. He can make whatever orders he thinks are appropriate. Before you carry on, I should point out with regards to Spock's actions, probably somewhere close to mutiny.
Yes.
At this point, and it's actually very similar to what happens in the first episode of Star Trek Discovery for anyone who's a fan of that show.
I'll take your word for it.
You should watch it.
So, realising that he has to deal with this situation, Kirk goes up to the bridge and orders Spock to come with him. He's very severe at this point.
Yes, it's coming to the teacher's office now, isn't it?
So in the turbo lift, a dazed and confused looking Spock says that he accepts Kirk's word that he altered the course of the ship, but he cannot explain why.
It's not really Kirk's word, is it? It's Chekhov's word.
That's true.
Kirk's not claiming to have been aware of it. He's been told. But anyway, yes, Spock accepts that it must have happened, but he has no recollection, as you say.
Yeah, couldn't explain it. No Vulcan could, apparently. And he asks to be locked away, as he doesn't want to be seen in this condition.
Yeah.
So it's a human emotion of embarrassment, isn't it?
Some kind of shame, anyway.
Yeah.
Kirk orders him to report to sickbay for a complete examination.
But, again, another issue I've got here. In this current situation, Kirk should escort him there and make sure. He just lets him wander off. And
he's got too much faith in Spock.
Yeah.
Probably based on what happened in the previous episode.
Sure.
Where Spock was able to overcome great things. In sickbay, Spock has taken a very literal interpretation of Kirk's orders.
Yes, he tries to get out of it in a technicality.
I've reported and now I'm leaving. But McCoy notes that his orders supersede that.
Yeah, and he appeals to him to look logically at the situation. And I think this is a good example of McCoy knowing how to manipulate Spock if he has to.
Yeah, Spock submits to him on this occasion.
Yeah, so he lies back in a bench as the camera focuses on his twitching hand.
We then get a very brief scene up on the bridge where Sulu and Chekhov, who are very rarely seen together.
Are they?
Yeah, well, Chekhov was basically Sulu's replacement for when George Takei was away making other movies and so on.
Sure.
But anyhow, they're together here and they have a quick conversation about what's going on and decide that they should maybe, keep their eyes open.
Yeah, I think there's a nice line here where they changed destination that many times that Chekhov is feeling a bit space sick.
Yeah.
In Kirk's quarters, McCoy enters with the disturbing news that if they don't get Spock to Vulcan within a week, he's going to die.
That's probably a hyperbole, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how accurate he can be with that.
He doesn't mean literally die.
Well, I think he does mean that, but
Yeah.
he can't tell him why, which annoys Kirk, but he notes that there seems to be a chemical imbalance surging through his body, a bit like adrenaline in us humans.
Yeah, he thinks that Spock, or the two of them agree that Spock knows what's going on, but it's clear that he won't reveal the problem. There's a particularly bizarre moment now as we go to Spock's quarters and he's looking at pictures of children on his computer.
Well, that's exactly what I've got here. Kirk enters as Spock is looking at pictures of a girl on his a young girl on his computer. Yep, and
which he quickly hides.
Yeah, it's not.
It doesn't look good for Spock, does it?
It does not at all. Yeah,
They've not really thought this through when they've put the scene together.
no. Anyway, Kirk wants to get to the bottom of what is going on, and he doesn't just mean with the images of
Paedophilia, yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we have to say it.
Well, yeah.
Hinting at it's no good.
No.
It's quite clear what's going on here. Unless Spock has a better explanation.
Well, he is initially reluctant to talk, and there is even a brief physical struggle before Kirk orders him to tell him what's going on and promises it will be treated in the strictest confidence.
I think there must be some reliance by Spock here on the trust between himself and Kirk, because he does begin to open up.
Yeah, he explains that it is about biology of Vulcans, and Kit listens.
He says there's no need to be embarrassed.
No, Kit listens, whilst I think wishing that he didn't have to.
Yeah, he mentions the birds and the bees in a very awkward way, and Spock explains that birds and bees are not stripped of their logic the way that Vulcans are in these moments.
So Spock asks him how he thought Vulcans reproduced, and how does Kirk respond?
He assumes it was done through pure logic.
Yes, but Spock corrects him on this, and goes on to describe the process in a bit more detail.
No. It is not. We shield it with ritual and customs shrouded in antiquity. You humans have no conception. It strips our minds from us. It brings a madness which rips away our veneer of civilization. It is the pon farr, the time of mating. There are precedents in nature, Captain. The giant eel birds of Regulus 5. Once each 11 years, they must return to the caverns where they hatched. On your Earth, the salmon. They must return to that one stream where they were born to spawn, or die in trying.
But you're not a fish, Mr. Spock. You're...
No, nor am I a man. I'm a Vulcan. I'd hoped I would be spared this, but the ancient drives are too strong. Eventually, they catch up with us. We are driven by forces we cannot control to return home and take a wife or die.
I think he tries to answer some of the questions you might have had about the episode here, where he says that he'd hoped he might be spared this. He maybe thought that being half human, this process wouldn't occur in him.
Yeah, well, that is one of the big questions I did have. Surely this should have been discussed before when you were filling in your application form to join
Ponfar.
Ponfar, yes. Any issues? Do you have any holidays booked? Anything we should know about? Yeah, you might want to be aware of this, that at one point I might try and take over the ship and divert it because I'm really horny.
That's it.
Yeah.
to the point of my own and others' deaths.
Yeah. Anyway, so now understanding the plight of his friend, Kirk leaves with the promise to keep this to himself and to get him to Vulcan.
Yes, he says, it's as if I've never heard this, but we're going to get you there.
Up on the bridge, he communicates with Uhura and tells her to pipe Starfleet Command down to McCoy's office.
Yep, and Laurel and Hardy on the con agree to plot a course to Vulcan just in case.
Yeah, so you mentioned that they are rarely seen in the same episodes, and I think that's disappointing because there could have been that duo, that dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah, I think it ended up with Takei being a bit resentful of the lines of his being given to Walter Koenig.
So off screen, off camera, do we know how the relationship?
I don't know. I presume they just kind of united in their disgust at William Shatner.
Yeah, common enemy.
Gave them publicity for many years.
Sure.
Jealousy, really.
Obviously.
Anyhow, yes, Chekhov and Sulu agree that they're going to plot a course to Vulcan because, they keep changing. Down in Spock's quarters, Uhura comes on the comms trying to talk to Spock.
What's he doing at this point?
He's sitting there playing his lyre. We saw that before with Uhura. We were singing for him, remember? Was that Charlie X, maybe?
Yes.
Spock yells at her to leave him alone and pounds his monitor into a pulp.
He does. It's
an overkill there.
Very much so. In sickbay. Is it Commander Admiral?
Admiral Comac, I think.
Yeah, from Starfleet Command is in a video call and tells Kirk that his request to divert is most unusual and that their original mission to Altair 6, is it? 6, has a significant political purpose and will send a powerful message to the Klingons. It's not just about being there to be seen to be there.
I like the reference to the Klingons.
Yes.
You don't very often get references out with the scope of the episode.
Yeah.
So that was a good one.
Bit of universe building.
Yeah. He hangs up on Kirk, basically saying no.
Yeah. Kirk is, he's aware of the importance of doing what they're meant to be doing, but he can't explain why he wants to alter their plans.
Well, not to Comac, or really to McCoy, but he does explain to McCoy that they're not needed at Altair. There's 2 other starships going, which is a change because normally they're the only starship in the sector. That's
true, yeah. And he also claims that he owes his life to Spock 12 times over, and more importantly, he is his friend. I liked Kirk here. I think he's... I liked his attitude.
Yeah, the calculation is it's more important to look after Spock. He gets hold of Chekhov on the comms, asks him to head for Vulcan at warp 8 or better, and is a little surprised when Chekhov says, oh yeah, I've already done that.
And this delights Chapel, who on hearing this news gets up with a smile and heads off to tell Spock.
That's unprofessional.
Very.
McCoy would be correct. For start, it's a personal matter, and Kirk should be the one that speaks to Spock. And secondly, it's none of her business.
Correct. In Spock's quarters, she finds him lying down with his eyes closed and almost gets a bit touchy creepy with him before thinking better of it and going to leave with a tear rolling down her eye.
Why is she crying?
I don't know, because...
He's not going to die, or
is it because that she realises that
he's getting married?
Yeah, he's going, yeah.
Maybe.
She's losing him.
She didn't have him.
No, but losing the opportunity.
She's about to have an opportunity.
Well, yeah, he rises, and instead it is he who gets creepy by telling her that she was in his dream and that they should not protest against their natures, and wipes away her face wetness.
Her face wetness. Yeah. Anyway, she short-circuits this moment by explaining to Spock that they are heading for Vulcan after all, and he regathers himself.
I thought this was a bit off. So he, as far as I could tell, had decided that if he wasn't going to Vulcan, he may as well sort himself out with Chapel, and he was ready to make that move.
Yeah.
But as soon as he finds out they're on their way to Vulcan, he tosses her aside.
Well, he's going to honour his ancient traditions.
He's at it.
Anyhow, he asks her for some soup, and she's very pleased. After a moment of insisting he call her Christine, very pleased to do that.
In the turbo lift, McCoy, Kirk and Spock are on the way to the bridge when Spock has a touching request.
He does. First of all, he compliments McCoy on figuring out what's wrong with him without being told and without Kirk revealing it. And then he tells the others that on the planet of Vulcan, can seem a bit distasteful to outsiders. It might seem a bit mad, but reassured by Kirk that they can handle it, he invites the two of them to accompany him to the ceremony.
And I think McCoy really appreciated this. I mean, Kirk was the obvious invitee, but yeah, McCoy was...
He was touched, I think, yeah, and they do accept this. Well, false pretenses to a certain extent, because he refers to it as a short ceremony.
If you told me this, yeah. Up on the bridge.
Uhura opens a channel to Vulcan Space Central.
Yes, and after an initial welcome, Spock is asked to activate the central viewer. And at this point, Chapel walks in.
For no reason.
Yeah, exactly. And they all witness an intimate communication between Spock and a female Vulcan, which has an unexpected ending.
Spock, it is I.
T'Pring, parted from me and never parted. Never and always touching and touched. We meet at the appointed place.
Spock, parted from me and never parted. Never and always, touching and touched. I await you.
She's lovely, Mr. Spock. Who is she?
She is T'Pring, my wife.
After that big reveal, we move on to the episode's penultimate scene.
Yes, a very long scene coming up. T'Pring speaks like the Archons.
Not as much as T'Pau does. We're about to find out.
Yeah.
I think that was a bit ceremonial. I think those were things that they were required to say in advance of their marriage.
Sure. So the three friends are beamed down to a very dry-looking red planet.
Mars-y sort of
Yeah,
place,
it's not what I expected. For some reason, I thought it'd be bluish.
Although Mars is a cold planet, so it's probably, it's red to indicate warmth. Vulcan's a hot planet.
They cross a very large stone bridge to this ceremonial place. I think it overlooks as well the city.
It may well do, yes. Spock refers to it as the Kunut Caliphate.
Yeah, which has been held by them for over 2,000 years, apparently. And as he walks off, Kirk explains that it means marriage or challenge.
McCoy comments at this point that this blood fever, this madness, might well be a trade-off for the lack of emotion all the rest of their lives.
Yes.
Which I thought was quite good. And
quite insightful. I think he's probably correct.
Yeah, and a bit like again, the Archons with their hour or 12 hours of
chaos.
Yeah. He also says he's realised what the phrase "hot as Vulcan" means.
Yeah.
Quite enjoyed that. Kirk makes a note at this point that's worth remembering, that the atmosphere here is thinner than on Earth.
Yes. Before we see Spock strike a gong, and he tells them that the marriage party is approaching.
Yes, he explains to them that T'Pring is his wife by parental arrangement, because they're a bit surprised. He's referred to her as his wife already, so they don't understand why there's a marriage ceremony to follow. Yeah,
it says it was a betrothal when they were about 7.
Yes, a ceremony that was short of marriage, but more than engagement.
Sure. Hope it wasn't consummated.
Not at that age. Whether you said they were 9?
7.
7? Yeah.
Well, apparently they touched each other to feel the other's thoughts, and then in time they would be drawn together for this Kunut Caliphate.
Kirk is very surprised when T'Pau appears. He bought all their singles.
Yeah. So growing up, I think I found this out only about 6 months ago. I had no idea the band T'Pau.
Yeah.
Was it the famous number one? Was it China in Your Hand? Something like that. Yeah. Well aware of the band and had no idea. It's always a strange name for a band, I thought. And yeah, based on this, again, not the obvious choice for a pop band, is it? It's a bit.
No, I imagine it's not a manufactured band. Then it's probably people who actually liked Star Trek there.
We'd have thought so.
Yeah, it's quite cool.
Yeah. When was that back in? What was it? 87? That 88? I'm guessing.
China in Your Hand, 92.
Really? No. Was that a re-release?
It's on my cassette tape. Hits of 92.
Maybe that was a re-release.
Yeah,
I think it was the 80s, definitely.
Okay.
Could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I would have guessed 87.
Well, you may well be right.
Anyway, yeah, so this T'Pau, she is an older lady, and she is being carried on a throne-type contraption.
Yeah. She, Kirk says, is the only person ever to turn down a seat on the Federation Council. She's not a politician, maybe, or if she is, she's got her own planet's interests most in mind.
And McCoy can't believe that she is officiating at Spock's wedding.
Well, this must mean that Spock's family are important, they think.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk makes this point.
Well, there's no indication that Spock's family are there.
No, but why would a very important person turn up?
I think Spock's estranged from his family. Has he mentioned this already in the series?
I don't think so. I'm not really aware of it. Maybe a hint at it.
I think there's been hints that he doesn't talk to his father.
Right.
Yeah. So certainly there's no indication that they've shown up for this.
In any case, they watch on with curiosity as Spock approaches her with the Vulcan... What's that called again? The
Vulcan hand gesture.
Okay. Which she returns before he kneels in front of her so that she can briefly fondle his ears and face.
I think she's reading his mind or doing the sort of connection, mind melody type thing. Spock is asked whether he will vouch for these non-native people that he's brought.
Outworlders.
Yeah.
And he does so.
He pledges his life against their good behaviour.
Very good of him. So she beckons them to her, and they introduce themselves before Spock, as you say, pledges his life.
It's not only very good of him, but very lucid of him. Just moments before she announces that he's deep in the blood fever and can no longer answer questions.
She warns and reminds Spock that what his two friends are about to witness comes from the beginning. It is their heart and soul.
She does. And Spock begins the ritual, I believe. I think he gongs the gong.
No, that's that she stops him from hitting the gong.
He's about to gong the gong, and she calls for Caliphie, which sounds like something that happens in the Middle East.
Take your word for that. T'Pau explains that T'Pring has chosen the challenge.
That's what I'm thinking of, the Burj Khalifa, the tall building in Dubai.
Well, there you go,
So there must be similar roots of words in Vulcan and in Arabic.
All right. Can we crack on?
I thought we were.
Okay. T'Pring has chosen the challenge and will decide who his challenger will be.
She has.
And Think informs him that Spock will not speak again until it's all over. Although Kirk and McCoy are free to leave just now if they want.
It's all kind of vague, isn't it? They're kind of nudged towards leaving without being told why they might want to.
Yeah, Kirk, I think, is unfairly tricked into potentially losing his life.
Yeah, very much so. And Spock explains this as best he can in the condition that he's in.
Yeah. So, anyway, both Spock and T'Pring agree to the challenge, and Kirk looks at the man beside him and wonders if Spock will be able to overcome him. So he's assuming that...
Yeah, the boyfriend will be the challenger.
Yeah.
McCoy doesn't think that Spock can take this guy on.
No. However, Kirk soon discovers that things are not as straightforward as what he presumed when he, in fact, is selected to fight Spock.
Yeah, he's given an option to decline, but does not take it.
Yeah, the other chap complains.
Well, Stone, yeah, he thinks that it is his position and he should be the one to do it, but T'Pring has made her choice, and the armed guards very quickly shut him down.
Yeah. And at this, Spock feels the need to speak and try and avoid what's about to happen.
He speaks.
My friend does not understand.
The choice has been made, Spock. It is up to him now.
He does not know. I will do what I must to bow, but not with him. His blood does not burn. He is my friend.
It is said, thy Vulcan blood is thin. Are ye Vulcan, or are ye human?
I burn to bow. My eyes are flame. My heart is flame. Thee has the power to bow. In the name of my fathers, forbid. Forbid. To bow. I plead with thee. I beg.
Thou hast prided thyself on thy Vulcan heritage. It is decided.
He then has a purple belt tied round his waist, and Kirk asks what happens if he declines.
He does.
T'Pau tells him that another will be selected, but he should not interfere with what has been.
Yeah, I think Kirk's concern here is that the other will be this guy who will destroy Spock and probably render him unable to marry his wife.
Yeah. McCoy then advises Kirk that he can't fight Spock, but Kirk suggests that maybe he can just knock him out without doing any real damage.
Yeah, they're not sure what condition Spock's in. They think he's below par anyway, but...
Well, McCoy mentions the fact that the heat or the thin air is going to get to Kirk if Spock doesn't.
Yeah. So they're both in a bit of bother, but Kirk thinks he can just tap out if things get too strenuous.
Yeah, I think that tapping out is a way where he can get out of the situation and Spock's honour is kept intact.
Yeah. Kirk at this point formally accepts the challenge when pressed by T'Pau.
However, he is soon regretting his decision as he finds out that it is in fact a fight to the death.
Yeah, T'Pau's announcement that if there's a survivor of the first round is a bit of a blow for Kirk.
It's like, what? You never told me this. 3 times or so you asked me if I wanted to back out and I said no. You might have said to me, listen, there's a good chance you're going to die.
Yeah, or it's a possibility that one of you, or it's a certainty that one of you will.
Yeah, you do realise, Kirk, you can leave now if you want. No, it's okay. Are you sure? Because just to be clear here, this is a fight to the death. Oh yeah, okay, I'll go.
Yeah,
at it. Anyway, bring out the first round of these sort of scythes.
They're more like hose.
Really? She's perfectly reasonably dressed.
Garden hose. And
what thing that you sprinkle? You put water on?
No, not the hose. Come on.
No,
this is not. You can't have an accent problem here. We've been talking about this for quite some time. Anyway, yes, this sort of weird semicircular weapon, and Spock strikes an early blow across the chest of Kirk.
Yeah, well, you say Kirk, it's the stunt doubles.
I thought they did a much better job of disguising them this season.
That was a horrible job.
You didn't like it? I mean, his hair was a different colour.
And his face wasn't
longer.
The same.
But apart from that...
Apart from the hair in the face.
You could believe it. It was
twins.
Shatner all along.
And neither of them. Now, this is a question or an issue I have with it. Was it last week? Anyway, one of them. We're led to believe, and I asked you about this, and you confirmed, that Spock is meant to have strength greater than a human.
Yeah, but we've already noted that he's weakened by the fact that he's got this sort of blood fever thing going on.
No, we don't know. How? No.
McCoy says he couldn't take Ston in his current condition. It's implied that Spock is not operating at full power.
Kirk is also operating in a thinner atmosphere.
Yeah, but that doesn't take effect immediately. So Kirk, at least in this first round, Kirk is able to basically tie. They disarm one another. But I don't think Kirk at any point has the upper hand in the fight. And McCoy recognises this because as soon as that first round is declared a draw, he approaches T'Pau with a request. Yeah,
he wants to give Kirk a shot of something that will help him breathe.
Yeah, T'Pau's dubious. She says the air is the air. You can't do anything about this. But McCoy says you can.
Yeah, she eventually agrees. This isn't. You can't go and inject. Can you imagine that today? I'm just about.
I'm sorry, Mr. Farah. I've got some.
Yes, Lance. What's that? Yeah, it's just for the air. I'd like to just go over the top of this hill. Any chance I can take a little shot? Yeah, go for it. No problem at all.
You wouldn't have that. That would never be allowed.
No.
I would take all my blood out and replace it with the blood of my teammates.
Dinosaur.
Anyhow, they are permitted to do this, and McCoy injects Kirk with this tri-oxy compound, as he explains, which will help him breathe a bit better.
So the next round begins. This time they're armed with bands, which after a few minutes results in Kirk being... Well, initially I thought, just being choked out.
Yeah, but apparently he's died.
Yeah, McCoy rushes to him and tells Spock to get off before claiming him to be dead. That seems unlikely considering this is episode 1 of season 2.
Well, T'Pau sympathises with McCoy, who has to ask Spock now for orders because he's now the commanding officer.
Yeah, technically, officially. And he tells McCoy to go up ahead to the ship. He will follow and to tell Chekhov to plot a path to the nearest starbase.
Yes, he's going to surrender himself to the authorities once this is all dealt with.
For what?
killing his captain.
Yeah, okay. But Kirk willingly had a fight with him.
Oh, he doesn't say he's going to submit himself to the authorities and let them decide what should be done. He's not saying he's going to necessarily be
fair enough
found guilty of anything. As soon as Kirk and McCoy leave, Spock is much more clear-headed than he's been.
Yes, and he approaches T'Pring to ask for an explanation.
Why the challenge? And why you chose my captain as your champion?
Stan wanted me, I wanted him.
I see no logic in preferring Stan over me.
You have become much known among our people, Spock. Almost a legend. And as the years went by, I came to know that I did not want to be the consort of a legend. But by the laws of our people, I could only divorce you by the caliphate. There was also Stan, who wanted very much to be my consort, and I wanted him. If your captain were Victor, he would not want me, and so I would have Stan. If you were Victor, you would free me because I had dared to challenge, and again I would have Stan. But if you did not free me, it would be the same, for you would be gone, and I would have your name and your property, and Stan would still be there.
Logical. Flawlessly logical.
I am honored.
Stan. She is yours. After a time, you may find that having is not so pleasing a thing after all as wanting. It is not logical, but it is often true.
Spock sounds to me a lot like one of those guys who's been kicked off of Love Island. It's like, where's the logic in choosing him over me? Now that you've got her, you won't want her.
And T'Pring doesn't do herself any favours. As I said earlier on, I'm not entirely convinced of the most endearing of people of her race. And maybe she may not be a representation, of course.
She's completely emasculated Stan as well there.
Cuckold.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, even if you marry me, he'll hang around, pick up the messes.
Spock's better off out of that whole situation, I think.
Of course he is, yeah. But he's got his own problems now.
Well, before he beams up, he goes to T'Pau and tells her to live long and prosper. Now, is this the first time we hear this?
Yeah, well, we'll come to that in the trivia, but yes.
Okay. And she returns this sentiment.
And he says he won't.
Why not?
He's killed his friend. He's off.
Cheerio.
Back on the Enterprise, we're in sickbay and Spock enters asking McCoy to make the final arrangements for Kirk's funeral.
Yeah, and also that he will be resigning immediately.
Yes, he's going to hand command of the ship over to Scotty.
Is Scotty the next logical...
He's the next in command by rank. I would have thought maybe Scotty and McCoy are equal in rank, but maybe Scotty's more likely to take command. He's probably better training in that line of things than McCoy.
Yeah.
There's a problem with this, though.
Yeah, as he speaks, we see a familiar figure walk up behind him and cause almighty relief and delight, followed by a realisation of the emotion that he's just expressed as he sees who?
He sees Captain Kirk.
Yeah, and he tries to regain his composure immediately. I quite like that.
I've never seen him happier.
Yeah.
It's like sheer elation on Spock's face and disbelief, I think.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand what's happened.
No.
You'd think he would figure it out. But he doesn't have time because McCoy explains.
Yeah. He discovers that he was the hero of the day, as he in fact slipped Kirk a neuroparalyzer, which made him look like he was dead. But nobody actually checked.
Well, McCoy checked, and he reported that Kirk was dead.
Yeah, but he's it's his friend, so if you're T'Pau or T'Pring, you're probably wanting to not take his word for it.
No, I think they're quite happy for it to be over.
That was easy then, wasn't it?
I suspect T'Pau knew.
You think?
Yes. And we find out about that shortly after. First of all, Chapel's kicked out and looks really miffed about it.
She does, yeah. Us guys are having a chat on you, go hen.
None of your business. Out.
Go, little lady, go and get some soup and they go.
And Spock explains that when he thought he had killed Kirk, he lost any interest in T'Pring.
Yes, before they are interrupted by a communication from Starfleet Command that is responding to a request by T'Pau to allow them to divert to Vulcan.
Yeah, so this is where I think T'Pau's maybe been aware of what's going on. So she's made a request to the Federation to allow the Enterprise to come to Vulcan. That
Yeah.
covers up the mistake or the rules that Kirk broke by going there.
Uh-huh.
And I just get the impression that, well, why would she go to that effort if it wasn't for the fact that she was aware of what was going on?
Yeah, maybe.
I suspect that after Spock's left, Kirk's been in touch with T'Pau. Said, I'm still alive. Hope you don't mind. Very sorry.
And
Can you contact the
Yeah.
Federation for us?
because they know that she's got influence.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Prodded at this point by McCoy, Spock insists that his joyous reaction to seeing Kirk was merely relief that Starfleet had not lost a highly proficient captain.
Yes.
Entirely logical.
But McCoy responds by saying that, yeah, it was quite logical in a pig's eye.
Kirk and Spock head off to the bridge to start the next adventure.
They do.
That was a good episode, I thought.
It was a good episode, a perfectly fine episode. A perfectly good episode a perfectly good episode to start a new season with.
I think if you'd been waiting since the end of season 1, you'd be quite pleased.
I think you'd be very pleased. It was good that they did look more internally at the characters as opposed to...
Yeah, and I think there's a reason for that, and I touched on it briefly during the episode that this had been in consideration as a season 1 episode, and the reason for that is because Spock was so unexpectedly popular when the show started to air that they wanted more Spock content.
Sure.
And this is one of the ones that this was drawn up for that purpose.
Okay.
5 months between the airing of the previous episode and this one.
Was it?
Yeah.
Not that long.
No, not long to wait.
What other trivia do you have for us?
Oh, I had one more question about the episode first.
Sure.
How do you think this will affect Kirk and Spock's relationship in the future? Or do you think it'll affect it?
Well, that's the thing. Okay, so I don't think it will. I think they'll forget about it, obviously, and they'll just reset. However, yeah, it's a bit awkward, isn't it? It's like, you did try to kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you thought you'd killed me.
Yes.
Yeah,
You tried to kill me.
Yeah, I don't really trust you that much.
Put that down, Spock. Put that phaser rifle away.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever get horny again, you need to let me know.
Well in advance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be awkward, isn't it, moving forward?
Yes.
Anytime we have an argument, that'll be brought up. Remember that time you tried to kill me?
You said you wouldn't mention that again. Okay, trivia. Original air date 15th of September 1967, as I said, 5 months after the first season ended in the April. It was directed, this episode, by Joseph Pevney. Heard of him before. This is the 6th of his 14 episodes, and we discussed him in more detail back in the podcast for Arena. Theodore Sturgeon was the writer for this episode. Again, you've heard of him, second of his 2 credits in the role. Hear more about him in the podcast for Shore Leave. Worth noting that in both of his 2 episodes, a primary crew member is believed to have been killed. Celia Lovsky played T'Pau. She was born in 1897, making her part of our 19th century guest star list.
Ah,
There's only 10 others. Can you name them?
Nope.
Can you name any of them?
Nope. No.
Right, pause your podcast, everybody. Name the 10 people, and then I'm going to list them.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Felix Locher, Judith Anderson, Morgan Farley, Richard Hale, Anthony Jochum, Leonard Moody, Charlie Seal, Bill Borzage, Abraham Sofer, and Ian Wolfe.
Fascinating.
We've not got to all of them yet, I don't think. Anyhow, she also appeared in shows like The Waltons, The Twilight Zone, and Bonanza. She died in 1979 when she was 82. Arlene Martell played the adult T'Pring.
Now, I know that name. Why?
Well, she only appears in this one Star Trek episode, so it's not from any previous Star Trek episodes. But she was in shows like Hogan's Heroes, The Monkees, and Bewitched. Was it from any of them?
Nope, don't think so.
She was in 3 episodes of Columbo.
That'll be where it's from.
She's this week's connection. She showed up in The Greenhouse Jungle, Double Exposure with Robert Culp, and A Friend Indeed, another good episode.
Double Exposure, I like that. Culp's always good.
Yeah, he is. She died in 2014 at the age of 78. The young T'Pring was a child actor. I've not got much about her.
Good.
We didn't really cover Spock being exonerated in the paedophilia charge.
No. Cover up.
That was when they were betrothed at age 7. That's the only image he had of T'Pring.
Yeah.
Lawrence Montaigne played Stawn. We saw him before in Balance of Terror, where he played a Romulan. So you can hear all about him if you go back and listen to that podcast. It's worth listening to. It was a good one.
If you do so, if you do say so yourself.
They're all amazing, but that was particularly good. Byron Morrow will save for his next appearance because he's a Columbo connection as well. We might need him.
Okay.
First appearance of a couple of key Vulcan elements you talked about, Live Long and Prosper. Also, the hand gesture hadn't been used before.
I don't know. I was sure it had been.
It had not. And they are both key elements of the
Are
Vulcan
you sure
culture.
it hadn't been used before?
I'm sure.
Oh, I'd have put money on it. Anyway.
There you go. There's an emoji of that, actually. It's in our Twitter name. And
I know.
Leonard Nimoy came up with that on set, remembering something similar from Jewish religious ceremonies in the past.
Okay.
Apparently, the actress playing T'Pau couldn't do it, had to place her hand with her other hand and then raise it into shot.
I can do it.
Yeah, you can do
With
it
both hands,
yeah.
and I can move it and close it. Yeah.
Can you do the two middle ones and outside the... I don't know. It doesn't
on.
matter. One of the few times, as I said, that Sulu and Chekhov are seen together, they're kind of interchangeable the rest of the way. So McCoy's had a extension on his sickbay, a nice bigger office here.
Mm-hmm.
First time I've seen any Vulcans other than Spock.
Okay.
They wear the same helmets as the Romulans for the same reason. It's cheaper than ears. And it's also the same reason that the young T'Pring only had one of her ears done, because you only saw one on screen.
Okay. That's good.
In terms of international titles, there's only a few that really break away from what the English title was. In France, it was Le Mal du Pays, which just means homesick. Doesn't make sense. The Italians went for Il Duello, the duel. The Germans with Weltraumfieber, space fever. And meanwhile, our friends in Japan opted for Barokansei no Himitsu, which translates as Secret of the Vulcan. Next week, it's the second episode of Season 2, Who Mourns for Adonais. It's another Superior Being episode, unfortunately, but we'll give it a shot.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we'll see everybody in about 7 days' time.
Until then,
Cheerio.
bye bye.